and Andrew Pearce. We're going to take you through till noon.
We'll be tackling the big topics of the day, including the things that the other channels just won't talk about. If it's happening here. Wake up to mornings on GB News, the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
New to GB News is the Saturday 5.
Join us every Saturday from 8 p.m.
as we debate the week's stories.
Right, folks, that was a spicy one, wasn't it?
With us four, plus a special guest.
Sometimes she has to stick her foot in it. Sometimes she has to say things as they are.
Sometimes I think we should keep the refugees and send the pensioners to Rwanda. Then we'd be in a much better state.
Well, Benjamin, that is...
The Saturday 5. Saturday nights from 8.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it. So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics, and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There will be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good evening, you're with GB News. In a moment, headliners. First, let's bring you the latest news headlines. And our top story, members from the RMT union have voted to continue with their strike action. Unions involved in disputes have had to reballot their members every 6 months to legally continue with walkouts. The RMT said there was an overwhelming vote in favour of the move. A man arrested following an incident at Buckingham Palace earlier on this week has been detained under the Mental Health Act. The 59-year-old threw suspected shotgun cartridges into the grounds on Tuesday. He's now been taken to hospital where he remains on bail. And flowers and foliage from all over the UK has arrived at Westminster Abbey ahead of the coronation. Over 120 varieties have been provided by a non-profit group that champions artisan growers. They'll showcase the best of British, taken from areas including the Isle of Skye, Cornwall and Northern Ireland. No single-use plastics or foam has been used in the arrangements. In the United States, members of a far-right militia group have been convicted of the plotting of the attack on the US Capitol building. Donald Trump supporters stormed the building in January 2021 to try to block Congress from formalising Joe Biden as president. 4 members of the so-called Proud Boys group were found guilty of seditious conspiracy. And lastly, Ed Sheeran has won a legal copyright case that accused him of copying parts of a Marvin Gaye classic. The family of one of the writers of Let's Get It On accused Ed of replicating parts of the hit song for his own track, Thinking Out Loud. Jurors, though, found he had not infringed on the family's copyright interest in the song. Here's what he said outside court.
I'm obviously very happy with the outcome of the case, and it looks like I'm not having to retire from my day job after all. But at the same time, I'm unbelievably frustrated that baseless claims like this are allowed to go to court at all. We've spent the last 8 years talking about 2 songs with dramatically different lyrics, melodies and 4 chords which are also different and used by songwriters every day all over the world.
Ed Sheeran speaking outside a courtroom in New York earlier on today. You're up to date on TV, online, DAB Plus radio and on the TuneIn app. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hello and welcome to Headliners. I'm Nick Dixon, and it's going to be an excellent show because we have the Headliners core team, the OGs, the people who were here from the very beginning, including the person who named the show. It doesn't matter who that was. Anyway, let's welcome Headliners legends Leo Kearse and Josh Howie. In fact, was that the right way around?
That was the wrong way around.
Whatever.
In case anybody thinks we've done a face-off.
Yeah. Who wrote that link?
I wrote the link, but I don't operate the cameras. I mean, I just said Leo and Josh. It's not a very complicated link.
No, fine.
Anyway, we're all melting down. Anyway, I'm just glad we don't have to talk about gout and diabetes for a whole show. That's a reference to Lewis Schaefer. How are you guys? Or I always like this bit where you ask how you are and it's never awkward.
No, I'm great, mate, but I'll tell you more about it when I drive you home tonight.
OK.
I'll give you a lift afterwards.
If we're still talking.
Yeah.
Let's have a look at the front pages then. The Daily Mail goes with China's coronation insult to Britain. The Telegraph has coronation anthem is made for churches. The Guardian, UK and US in challenge to tech firms over growing power of AI. The Mirror has energy fat cat scandal obscene. And the Eye goes with Shell force-fitted 4,000 prepay meters in the UK while making 32 billion in profits. Nice work if you can get it. The Metro has send him victorious, whatever that means. And those were Friday's front pages. So let's take a look at the Daily Mail, Leo.
So the Daily Mail lead with China's coronation insult to Britain. So Beijing yesterday confirmed that the Vice President Han Zheng, who oversaw a brutal clampdown on freedom in Hong Kong, will attend Saturday's event. Hong Kong, of course, used to be part of the British Empire, and we had it up until, when was it? Sometime in the 90s, early.
It was recently,
90s.
yeah, great days.
It wasn't long ago. And Lord Patton, who was the last British governor of Hong Kong, and also, it's an example of everybody says, like, the British Empire, the colonisation that the British Empire did was so terrible. No, in Hong Kong, we had democracy, we had freedom, and since it's gone back to China, those freedoms are being eroded away. Do
you think they'd be taken more seriously if they didn't say it in that voice?
That's the only voice I can
colonisation.
That's my voice for Guardian readers, that's my voice for the trans rights lobby, and my voice for people
very
complaining about colonisation.
Effective rhetorical device. Sorry, Leo, I interrupted.
Yeah, so Lord Patton has said it shows that China doesn't give two hoots. It's almost...
He didn't say two hoots, he said don't give a toss.
He said two hoots.
We have like to apologise.
I'm sorry.
Obscene language.
I'm quoting Lord Hatton there, sorry.
That's not good enough.
Oh, no, I apologise.
The 5 a.m. repeat people will be very insulted. Sorry, carry on, Leo.
But yeah, so he said in the PC family-friendly version, he says two hoots, like an owl would do. And it's almost like China sort of...
I love a two hoot.
Thumbing its nose at Britain by sending this guy who cracked down on British values such as freedom and democracy in Hong Kong.
Yeah, what do you think, Josh?
Well, I mean,
terrible language.
Yeah, of Lord Patton there. Sorry. It's the thing is, this was a story about a week and a half ago. So I'm surprised they're kind of dredging it up. It seems like
this is a non-story.
No, I'm not saying it's a non-story. It is a story, but the only addition is that Lord Patton's got a bit of a potty mouth.
One thing they bring up that's quite relevant is King Charles was unhappy back when he was the king formerly known as Prince in 1997. He was unhappy with the 1997 handover of Hong Kong from Britain to China. He called it the Great Chinese Takeaway, which you could do in those days because it was the 90s and nobody was walking around.
Do you think he wrote that? I wanted to say, while we see that in the background, you've also got a photo there of new Prince of Wales and whatever. They're on the tube. And you could tell they've never been on the tube before because they're talking to other people.
Right.
So it's a massive mistake.
That is a massive.
No one ever told them. It's like, guys, you don't know what it's like to be in London.
When you say the king formerly known as Prince Leo, isn't that all kings?
No, because some are born directly into kinghood.
Ah.
And also some of them, yeah.
Good point. I didn't think it through at all, did I?
Alexander.
Who's he?
King Alexander.
OK, we're learning a lot. Should we have a look at the Telegraph before this gets any labour? Josh?
Yes, so the big story... well, first of all, there's a picture of our new king there, and I just hope that he's not asking these guys where they're from, because that would be not good. And got a little in-joke there.
That's gone wrong before.
Yeah, that has gone wrong before. But the big story is coronation anthem is made for churches. And when I say big story, what I mean is it's just the rubbishest story ever, where Andrew Lloyd Webber has written a coronation anthem, and basically King Charles has said, "Oh, I hope it's hummable," and they want it to become like a sort of a great song that will be played at weddings. King Charles, and Camilla's now the Queen. Consort.
I've got a feeling you might be making that up, Josh, but isn't there something there about he wants it to be Christian, he wants it to be in churches? Isn't there something about the tension between Charles's Christianity and his kind of wokeness on the other hand? Am I grasping it?
That's good. No, that's very impressive. Sort of little angles there.
Well, he's bringing in lots of other faiths to the celebration.
I hope they get that look you just did. Do that look again.
I said, oh, that's brilliant. I just muttered, that's amazing. No, the odd strange thing, though, we're meant to be a Christian country with a Christian head of state, but then it's like, all faiths are great, and I'm like, But we are Christian, aren't we?
But also, what's wrong with saying all faiths are great?
Well, yeah, they're great.
We're not a Christian country. I'm really sorry, but Christianity.
But technically, we are.
Christianity is now
it's the most hated religion in the West.
It's definitely the self-hate in the West is insane. And I think by 2050, Islam is going to be the majority religion in the UK.
Okay. Well, do you have any take on this front page, Leo?
Well, enjoy it while you're allowed to. Before we have an ayatollah instead of a king.
Yeah. Do you want to do this schizophrenia cannabis story?
Leo's been smoking.
The actual interesting story. So, so yeah, apparently there's a risk of schizophrenia in cannabis addicts. I mean, they use the term addicts, even though people for years have said, "Oh, cannabis isn't addictive." If it's not addictive, why do people who smoke cannabis smoke it every day and not do anything?
Yeah,
they don't just say addicts, though. They do say users. They don't really use the word.
No, they use the word addict.
Okay. Well, there you go. Yeah, serious cannabis addict. I mean, anybody who's hung out with a lot of loser friends knows that there's some serious side effects, and I've got a bunch of mates who've all gone a bit bonkers.
Yeah, you're not the loser. You're just hanging out for sort of
Well,
research.
I was the guy...
They're all losers.
They're the losers, yeah. But 1 in 200 people, it has a really adverse effect on mentally. But the other thing is, the question is, how much does alcohol have an effect? Like, one on what? Like, a comparison?
Yeah, I don't know. I've said for ages that cannabis is very dangerous, mainly because I copy all my opinions off Peter Hitchens. It's a very simple system. And he seems to say it is really dangerous. And I think it is weird that it's legalised in all these places and now Germany want to do it. They've done it in the US. I think I'm against it.
And I think the dangerous thing about cannabis is that it's something you can take and you don't hit rock bottom. I think if you start smoking crack, you lose your life and your family and your money pretty quickly. Whereas cannabis, you can carry on smoking it for ages. But, all during that time, you won't fill in a form.
Right, you prefer crack because it's like you immediately hit rock bottom, you have to turn your life around, whereas weed, you can just sort of float along the bottom for a long time.
Near the bottom.
There is something quite interesting here about but it's affecting men more than women. And I think that's quite an interesting area. I don't know why men are more vulnerable to
Aren't they just smoking way more?
Yeah, men,
well, that might be it, but
men are traditionally more vulnerable to certain types of mental health condition. I think schizophrenia is one of them.
All right, well, let's have a look at the Times then, Leo.
OK, the Times has... thousands more prisoners will be let out on day release to plug labour shortages under plans being considered to reduce reoffending while boosting the economy. So only a quarter of people leaving prison get a job within 6 months. So they want to fix this. And they also want to fix the problem with the economy, which is that there aren't enough workers. So one solution to that is to just let people come across the channel in small boats and hope they do a good day's work. The other solution could be to get people out of prison and show them that, you don't need to sell drugs to make money. You don't need to nick car stereos. You can actually get a job in construction, haulage, or hospitality.
Yeah, or police, or childcare.
Well, you wouldn't be able to work in the police because you'd have a criminal record.
Yeah, I think he was doing a joke, Leo. You took it very literally.
Very, very literally there.
He's saying because the police have such a bad record.
But also,
I think that's what he was going for.
Yeah, that was exactly it.
We can explain all the jokes now. Don't worry.
But do you think that, what quality of jobs are they really going to come into in terms of filling up the worst possible jobs? Some of them might end up as panelists on headliners, the lowest paid of all employment. So we'll see.
And we have all been in prison. Is the coincidence there? Yeah. But we probably shouldn't talk about it on live TV. Is there anything else on the Times you want to talk about? I could do my sort of Simon Evans of asking you about the one story you haven't looked at.
So, Britons don't like the coronation quiche.
Right, that is
because
big.
It's a quiche.
They shun the coronation quiche.
Coronation steak and kidney pie. That's a coronation Yorkshire pudding.
Yeah. Coronation Cumberland sausage.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And there's also this one about high blood pressure linked to 30 minutes a week on the mobile phone, which
Really?
Do you get that thing on Monday morning where you just you've been on your phone for 4 days straight this week, or your thing has gone up or whatever. So this idea that just 30 minutes a week is enough to bring up your blood pressure, that is
So is that when people aren't spending long enough on their phone?
Well, no, I think it's just even 30 minutes is enough to actually make an impact. No, it's just, it's too much, 30 minutes a week.
Nuts.
I know, it's crazy, right?
In my case, it's because I'm looking at Twitter and people are calling me a far-right moron, and that puts my blood pressure right.
So now you tell me that, yeah.
Yes, it's all right, Lee, I've forgiven you. Let's have a quick look at the eye then, Josh.
Shell force-fitted 4,000 prepaid meters in the UK while making 32 billion profit. Another oil company, another huge amount of profit that they've made, and it turns out that some of that has just come from, the most hard-affected people in our society.
Well, if they just paid their bills, they wouldn't have one of these.
Well, I think they have they're not all going to be bad human beings or
I think
whatever.
they are
morally.
bad human. If they're not paying the bills,
Well,
by definition.
They might be
Leo coming in with the
struggling.
Victorian stance on this
Don't
one.
enter into a contract that you're not going to
Well,
honour.
everybody needs electricity and
They need
gas,
it.
and they need
Well,
heating and they need whatever,
energy
and they have,
companies-
and their costs have gone down. And
companies need to get paid.
There's a
It
myriad of
doesn't fall
factors.
out of the sky
Mate, you've
for
got
free.
disabled people who have been put on this stuff. It's disgusting
I don't
what
know
they're
any
doing.
disabled people.
I'm saying there are people who are genuinely at need who have been put onto these prepaid meters, and it's disgusting.
I kind of feel like Leo just picked a fight for no reason there with Josh about prepaid meters. But Leo, what about the cost of energy, cost of living?
This is a British success story. This is Shell, a UK-registered company. It'll probably move somewhere else soon because we're putting up corporation tax. But it's a British success story. It's made £32 billion in profit. That's money going to all those needy shareholders and pension plans. It's great. Why can't we celebrate the fact that Shell are so good at doing what they do?
Well, that was one of your most iconoclastic takes yet, Leo. All right, well, that's it for part one. But coming up, the Kremlin drone attack, the Proud Boys, and modern slavery. Just three of my favourite indie bands. See you in 2.
It's all about family, being in people's living rooms, all the interaction and getting to know who our viewers and listeners are.
When I was young, my dad used to say, Nana, stop arguing. I wanted an outlet that would enable me to give my opinion.
People are going through a really hard time right now, and I know that you don't feel like you're being listened to by the establishment. I came to GB News because it's the People's Channel, and I want the audience to have their say on the events of the day.
We're dynamic. We do something different.
Democracy shows that the wisdom of the nation is in its people.
I get to travel to find out what the story is from a personal perspective.
The British people aren't fools. We know when we're not being told the full story.
We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this.
It's the best country in the world.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent your views.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
So Jubes and Co, we tackle the issues of the day with real, robust debate, both sides of the fence, battling it out with me in the middle with my forthright opinions and views. And often really interesting things happen because you start with a position and then by the end of the debate you find actually, well, I might not have thought about that one.
What we need in this country is 2 new political parties.
You should maybe think about doing a 2024 calendar. I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm keeping you company right through until 7 o'clock this evening.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's watching.
Start the day with GB News.
We catch up on all the big stories you didn't hear the night before.
And take a look at what the world's talking about this morning. That's right, Monday to Thursdays from 6 o'clock. It's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel. Straight after breakfast, join us, Bev Turner and Andrew Pearce. We're going to take you through till noon.
We'll be tackling the big topics of the day, including the things that the other channels just won't talk about. If it's happening here. Wake up to mornings on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m.
What's the scoop?
I'll be joined by 2 of the country's top comedians.
That's right.
As we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight.
We're going to get into trouble.
If it's a big story, we'll be covering it.
Spill some tea on him.
There we go.
But we'll also have some fun.
I wouldn't stick up a bank.
My father didn't love me.
So anyway.
Headliners every night from 11 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel. Saturday nights on GB News.
From 6 p.m, I'll give you my unique take on the world today.
Then at 7, it's me, Calvin Robinson, with my Common Sense Crusade.
New to GB News is the Saturday 5.
5 times the opinion. Join us every Saturday from 8 p.m.
as we debate the week's stories.
With us 4, plus a special guest.
And at 9, of course, it's Mark Dolan Tonight.
Saturday nights on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Headliners. I'm Nick Dixon, still here with Josh Howie, and that is him this time, and Leo Kearse, and that's definitely him. So let's do the Telegraph. And apparently King Charles must apologise for genocide. I didn't even know he'd done one. And people say the royal family don't work hard, Josh. I wasn't sure about that one either.
King Charles must apologise for British genocide and colonisation. This is the indigenous leaders from 12 Commonwealth countries, and they're saying this is so to begin the process of reparations. And I think they've conflated two things here because then they start going on about how Jamaica is now holding a referendum because they want to become a republic. But of course, Jamaica, the vast majority of people in Jamaica aren't actually indigenous. They were brought over themselves. So are we talking about Maoris? Are we talking about Aborigines? We're talking about two different issues here in terms of people transported across the world, but also then actually indigenous people who were arguably slaughtered and had terrible crimes against them. But this is the problem. They wanted this apology on the date of his coronation, on May 6th. And I just think that's a bit out of order. I think it's like he's been waiting for this for decades. Like, do it the day after. Like, my mum told me that my parents are getting divorced on the last day of my exams. And I was like, could you just not wait a day? Like, give me this day, and then let's chat.
It's a bit like the red wedding, isn't it? It's like, you know what I mean? Don't have it on the... You're absolutely right. It's a definite red wedding moment. I mean, Leo, aren't you a bit sick of this? Well, it's not that Britain's never done anything wrong, but it's like we have to constantly apologise. We never hear Turkey apologising for the Ottoman Empire. We never say, hey, Charles, can you take a day of celebration for ending slavery? What about that?
Well, that's the thing. I mean, this stuff happened hundreds of years ago, and it was bad, but it was hundreds of years ago, and the people responsible are dead now, and you can't hold people's children or great-great-great-great-grandchildren responsible for things that their ancestors
Although Aborigines have been going on, it's been in living memory. I mean, it's only been sort of 1964 that they got human rights.
That's Australia. I mean, that's,
they're still like under
that's
the part
Australia.
of the Commonwealth.
That's what they do.
They're part of the Commonwealth.
Don't ruin Leo's point.
Yeah, but all right, so some of it, I mean, they're talking about all the Commonwealth countries. All right, some of it is in Australia, Aborigines, we're still getting a raw deal fairly recently. But more recently than that, we've got slavery in the Middle East, in Africa, in China. There's more slaves now than at the peak of the transatlantic slave trade. But nobody's demanding an apology. Nobody's demanding an end to that. It doesn't seem to get any airtime whatsoever. And it's obviously the reason is that it's not done by white people, so it doesn't have that. People can't feel good kicking white people.
Yeah, and I do feel that a lot of it is because people see this current king as vulnerable, don't they? They see it as their time to really have a pop. And the Queen's dead, and she had a certain respect, and now she's dead. Everyone's trying to get rid of the monarchy. Everyone's trying to have a go. Don't you feel that way?
No, I don't think so at all.
Really?
I don't think everyone's trying to get rid of the monarchy.
They are. Australia are having a pop. The Guardian are having a go every day.
Sarkar had a go. Yeah,
everyone. All those
people are
people.
using it to, Republicans and people on the left are using it to get attention.
Well, I certainly think you're right about like places like Australia and whatnot, because of the respect that everybody had for the Queen and her longevity and her service. I think, people were... arguably she was much more popular than him. Yeah. As to whether he has the time to get that popularity himself, we'll see.
But at least Russell Crowe called him a good bloke. So there is that. Let's do The Guardian now with a story about slavery that for once doesn't involve them taking part in it, Leo.
Here we go, related to the previous story. So the number of potential modern slavery victims in England and Wales hits a record high. So a total of 4,746 people were referred to the Home Office from January to March as potential victims of exploitation. They're working across sectors such as construction, agriculture, the sex industry, and in nail bars, car washes and cannabis farms. That's why you can get your car washed by hand so cheaply, I guess. And Albanian nationals form the biggest portion of this, followed by British nationals. But what's interesting is, I mean, there are fears that Britain is now tackling modern slavery, and so people who are trafficked to the country to be slaves have a route out to it, and possibly a route to living as a British citizen. So that route is now being exploited by people. There's concerns that some of the people being represented coming forward as modern slaves are just gaming the system to.
Yeah, the sort of headline makes it sound like we're just having loads of modern slaves in Britain, but it's because of immigration. It may also be because of gaming the system. Certainly, according to Suella Braverman, she says that the system's being abused by people. We've seen a 450% increase in modern slavery claims since 2014. Josh, any comment?
But that's where the people are just getting better at the job at identifying it. But yes, there obviously were. The interesting thing is how up to date these numbers are, because of course now the Albanian migrants have massively decreased in terms of those who are coming over on the boats and whatnot. So their numbers have gone way down over the last few months. So, and the other thing that I wasn't really...
They're not staying in nice hotels anymore.
Well, I mean, you know, obviously it has made an impact, but obviously making the deal with the Albanian government has made an impact.
And also maybe some of them have been, texting mates back home being like, actually, I got here and it's not that great.
Well,
try and get into America.
But the other thing that's interesting is, 25% of modern slaves in this country being British citizens. That is quite a scary number, and you think that those people are being exploited and are victims of modern slavery. That's got nothing to do with immigration. That's a homegrown...
the open mic circuit in comedy.
But it does seem weird as well that the Dame Thornton left the anti-slavery commissioner role in April 22 and wasn't replaced. I mean, the amount of ridiculous diversity roles and all kinds of nonsense we got. You think they could fill that role? Yeah. Anti-slavery seems quite important.
And as she points out, they're trying to recruit associated with the Home Office, and arguably there's an issue there of conflict. So
all right. Well, sticking with The Guardian and the Kremlin drone attack, which used to be a trip-hop band from Bristol, but is now a deadly existential threat, Josh.
Yeah, let's bring on all the cranks and let's get to the bottom of this. White House dismisses ludicrous Russian claims that US planned the Kremlin drone strike. So really, with all these things, you've got to ask yourself, well, who's gaining this from this at all? The main thing about it, of course, is that Putin hardly is actually ever in the Kremlin. Like, the people actually, the intelligence is that he's not there. He doesn't work from there. That's not where... So the idea that any other intelligence service would attack, like, the Kremlin to get to him is a ridiculous idea.
Right.
I mean, as a sort of sign of Russia's weakness, I mean, you can't really get anything more emblematic than a drone making all the way through the air defences and exploding on the Senate Palace at the Kremlin.
Yeah, what do you think to the idea it's a false flag? Some people are saying it's a false flag. Some people are saying, well, it'll be the lamest false flag ever if it was, just a sort of little drone hitting them. And the head of RT said the response was far too muted for it to be a false flag. Otherwise, Russia would be using it.
But they have been. She says it's like she's obviously the head of RT. You can't believe anything that she says. And the fact is that the other people, there are people who work for the Russian government or whatever, who are basically saying this is our opportunity. We've got to take down Kyiv. We're going to get them and are using it as an excuse.
That's what they've been trying to do for.
No, but now to attack Zelensky directly, So, but yeah, she said that it was a cunning plan. Nice, she's been watching Blackadder.
But normally, after Ukraine makes a big dramatic hit, like sinking the Moskva or
the bridge,
the Nord Stream. Then Russia retaliates in kind with cruise missiles and a barrage of attacks across Ukraine. But yeah, that hasn't really happened. And that could just be an example. It could be indicative of the fact that Russia's running out of armaments.
You know you're in trouble when the Wagner Group is trying to sort of kill things out. The Wagner Group has said, as someone who's a radical person, I can say that the use of nuclear weapons in response to a drone is, of course, out of the question. So the Wagner Group go, chill, guys.
He's like, he's just such a reasonable guy. He's definitely my favourite sort of nutter warlord. He's just such an reasonable human being.
Yeah, I mean, but it's a pity Trump's not in, because I'd love to know what actually happened, and Trump would probably just tell us, wouldn't he? He'd be like, I sent the drone, you know what I mean? Because one last thing on this, Ollie, isn't it true, though, that what Peshkov's saying, at least this point, that Kiev does what it's told by Washington, is that sort of... America's kind of running the war, aren't they? Or
no, that's not really true. So, I mean, the West has obviously been providing a lot of weaponry to Ukraine, but now Ukraine's developing its own weaponry, including these drones. And it's also developed these things that extend the weaponry, the missiles that have been given to it by America. So, I mean, they are using, Western intelligence, but since there's that big intelligence leak, they're being quite cagey about their own intelligence. They're not releasing it to the West because they don't want to, they don't want Russia to get the jump on their spring offensive that's coming any moment.
Well, I was trying to give crucial broadcasting balance there by taking the Russian side.
And you called it Kiev as well.
Yeah, well, I don't really go for that Kyiv stuff. They're going to say I'm a Russian shill. I just don't go for... Can you really say Kyiv?
I say Mumbai or Mumbai. That's the real test.
It's Bombay.
Oh, my God.
Oh, the complaints. So let's do The Independent now. And a group that started out as a laugh but ended in violence. Sounds a bit like one of your gigs, Leo.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's the Proud Boys, which was actually started by the Vice, the founder of Vice. So it did start out as, a bit of a laugh. But now it's...
No, he said he started it as a joke, just for the record.
Like a drinking...
There was this song, Proud of Your Boy, and it was like some song from a musical, and he said, let's start a group called The Proud... Because he started Vice, he was the godfather of hipsterism, and he has all these sort of conceptual ideas, and now he goes, oh, what if I start a sort of right-wing group? And it got a bit out of hand.
It did get a bit out of hand, and now the Proud Boys leader and 3 members have been found guilty of seditious conspiracy, a treason charge in the January 6th Capitol attack, the riots there. And the Proud Boys are a white nationalist group led by a black man, interestingly, which suggests that they might not be that white nationalist.
Well, that's the thing. I don't want to be like, come out all pro-Proud Boys here, but let's be fair. This independent article calls them neo-fascist. They have a mixture of different racial groups, as you said. They started out as a sort of drinking group, a sort of bit of a laugh, and then they sort of started attacking Antifa because Antifa would show up to events, so they were the kind of security for people that Antifa would attack. Obviously, it's got out of hand, but this article is very, very ridiculously biased. I mean, it talks about Jan 6 in fairly ridiculous terms. Yeah. And, everything's like deadly insurrection and all this kind of nonsense. So, I don't know.
People died. But
what do you think, Josh?
Well, no, I mean, I just think there's a few things that are quite funny. First of all, they're blaming Trump. Like, they're just like, that's part of their defence. They're going, no, we just escaped Trump for scapegoat for Trump and those in power and whatnot. So they're sort of going, it was Donald Trump's words, it was his motivation. So that's quite interesting that they've sort of turned on him. And the other thing is they're also blaming locker room talk. And it just made me go and delete everything I've ever message you guys.
I mean, the trial was interesting because the Proud Boys wanted to use footage of police actually assisting or appearing to assist them. Because I mean, when we saw footage of the riots, it was strange. They were following, the guide ropes. It wasn't like the BLM riots. It was much more orderly. It looked like a sort of coachload of old people had been dropped off.
Well, speaking of BLM, one of the main things the Independent points out is they burnt a BLM flag, which is, of course, the worst possible thing. Or did they just take down the flag? It was one or the other. And they also cite, just for balance, they cite the Southern Poverty Law Centre as a serious source, which is a totally discredited organisation that's been sued multiple times. Anyway, that's that piece in the Independent. I'm not taking the side of the Proud Boys, but I'm also not taking the side of the Independent. Let's quickly do this one. The Guardian, and you might have thought AI potentially eradicating humanity was bad, but it's even worse. It may also spread misinformation, Josh.
Oh, indeed. UK Competition Watchdog launches review of AI market. This is obviously, AI has become this massive thing, but they're saying, no, we've been on top of it for ages. I'm sure they have. And they're going to publish its findings in September, where that will just be too late because humanity will be destroyed. But this is having real-world ramifications already. People like companies, IBM, not hiring new people for certain jobs. They just assume they're going to go. And also Pearson, which is a UK education company, they've just lost millions because of an American company that does the same thing, of just their values being gone way down because of ChatGPT. And it's interesting, but essentially it's a very boring and dry article that is impossible for me to make anything humorous
there
about.
is one funny part that apparently chatbots pretending to be journalists are running 50 AI-generated content farms, and they're still better than the New York Times and BuzzFeed and Vice. I've added that bit.
Well done.
Well, yeah, some of those companies are using AI, and AI should be, we should welcome the fact that useless journalists and people like that are going to be laid off. It's going to replace a lot of people. A lot of people are going to be put out of work. But the economy needs workers, so this is helping the economy. We could go back to the time when everybody washed their clothes by hand. Then that was automated, and I think it's better putting your clothes in a machine and letting a machine...
Hang on, you're saying... So IBM are going to get rid of 7,800 roles, for example, but you're saying that's good?
That's good, yeah, absolutely. Any time a robot does a job that a human could do...
But what will humans
it works
do?
Out better.
Won't they just sit around on universal basic income?
No, we'll do... Look what happened with... it's like The Man in the White Coat. The film about the Elan comedy about the jacket that gets developed...
Self-cleaning.
Self-cleaning, so they don't need laundrettes anymore. It's like if you get rid of... if you automate tasks, those people go and do other stuff. They'll become PR consultants.
The argument against is if you do it too fast, like, for example, self-driving cars, you just leave loads of people out of work.
Mining.
And it's a bit of a disaster. But anyway, they're going to meet Kamala Harris, so I'm sure she'll sort it. So that's all for part 2. But coming up, passwords are on the way out, and so are women. Unless you count mermaids, it'll all make sense. See you in 2 minutes.
I joined GB News because I was sick and tired of not hearing my views being represented, not just mine, but so many people that I knew and spoke to.
I just couldn't get my voice out there. I couldn't say anything, I couldn't do anything. Whatever the narrative was, I kind of had to follow it.
GB News is there to provide a voice for those who have been ignored by the establishment media. We think different things, we've got a different style.
GB News is here to be optimistic and positive about the future.
It's real kind of dynamic and flowing, with the audience very much at the heart of it, like a big family.
Here at GB News, we talk about the things that matter to you.
Hearing the voices from right across our towns and cities, especially our towns.
All sides of the argument represented with a heavy dose of opinion.
We're on a mission here to make a difference.
And the GB News family really is here for you, and whatever time of day you can watch or listen.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Mondays to Thursdays on Farage, here on GB News. We will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
You've probably seen politicians interviewed 1,000 times, but we do it differently. We find out who they really are, we don't shout, we chat, and hopefully we bring a bit of light, not just heat. Did you know Kate Moss?
Apparently.
Do you have a pair of jeans or a pair of jeans?
No, of course I don't. What would I do with them?
My friends are like, oh my God, what's she doing now?
Join me every Sunday at 6 for Gloria Meets, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, the Member of Parliament for North East Somerset and a former government minister. For years, I've walked the corridors of power in both Westminster and the City of London. We need to have the arguments, the discussions on how we make it better.
Crop failures, famine, war, suffering on a scale completely unimaginable.
We are putting the cart before the horse. As Charles I said at the scaffold, he was the true defender of liberty.
Yeah, I've completely derailed the conversation.
Join me Monday to Thursday at 8 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
New to GB News is the Saturday 5.
Join us every Saturday from 8 p.m.
as we debate the week's stories.
Right, folks, that was a spicy one, wasn't it?
With us four, plus a special guest.
Sometimes she has to stick her foot in it. Sometimes she has to say things as they are.
Sometimes I think we should keep the refugees and send the pensioners to Rwanda. Then we'd be in a much better state.
Well, Benjamin, that is...
The Saturday 5. Saturday nights from 8.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Headliners. Let's get straight into it with the Times. And a university has completely erased the word woman. Is the patriarchy finally back, Leo?
Yeah, we're back. We're back on top. So let's hear it for the men. Basically, the University of Arts London has written women out of menopause guidance because obviously anybody can become a parent. Instead, they use the terms pregnant person and expectant parent throughout the guidance. And it says, the policy says that expectant parents may be of any gender, including trans, non-binary, agender, gender non-conforming, genderqueer and gender-fluid individuals. I mean, you can be any of them, but I'm pretty sure you've got to squeeze a baby through a birth canal to actually be, you know, a mother, or whatever the correct term is that won't get me blacklisted from the Guardian or whatever. So, yeah, I mean, they do use the word woman once, but they actually make an excuse for it in a footnote and say, another piece of guidance that we're referring to used this term, so that's why we have to use it. They're so scared of using the word woman.
That's so weird.
It's so weird.
I'm so sick of these stories, and we do a lot of them, and they're important, but I'm also sick of them. And a spokeswoman for you, they use woman there, but that's the other. A spokesperson, it should say, for UAL said, we are proud of our sector-leading equal parental leave policy. And they go on and on. They say it reflects the inclusive nature of the policy. And later on, they say a more equitable workplace. It's just all the words we're used to. Inclusive, equity. They all just mean weird, woke.
They mean
communism.
The opposite of what they're...
Yeah. What do you think, Josh?
No, it's just frustrating because actually some of these policies are good. Equal parental leave, menopause policy, these are important issues that need to be worked on, and then it just gets sort of subsumed between the stupid deleting the word women. I mean, it's pathetic. And those two things particularly impacting women, and the idea that you're not going to use that word. I mean, look, we've covered, like you say, this story a lot of times, but it is important to cover it because this has an impact on the real world.
And also, it doesn't help anybody to remove the word woman. It makes it incredibly complicated. Imagine you've just come to Britain and English is your second language, or even your third language. You've got to like wade through and listen to, read gender non-conforming birthing unit and things like that instead of mother. It's ridiculous. And also, trans men who do get pregnant, they will understand that the pregnancy advice applies to them. You don't need to, create new words. Yeah. They will get it.
Trans men get pregnant.
Yeah.
Okay. What about this idea, Leo, that where do you think, or Josh, who do you think has caused this? Because obviously feminists call this stuff misogyny, but I read quite a compelling article the other day that confirmed my own theories, which I always like, that actually this came as an offshoot of feminism. When feminism said we can do everything just the same, we can be in the military and so on, you kind of created the idea that sex wasn't a big deal and that everything was amorphous. Yes. What do you think? I don't know.
It's fourth wave feminism, but who actually specifically created it was Stonewall with their policies of. I'm assuming that University of Arts London is a part of Stonewall. Signs up to its. You've got to pay money and then you get judged on how. Yeah,
it's like a mafia shakedown to get your stamp.
Yeah, and they literally send people in and go, all right, well, maybe you use the word woman there, so get rid of that and use this and whatever. And then they go, look at us, we're incredibly inclusive. We get a nice big tick next on it.
Yeah, the workplace equity index, equality index, something like that.
And they say they're inclusive, but really then just a lot of women feel that they're being excluded.
Right, exactly. Let's do the Telegraph then with a story about mermaids. Now, shouldn't that be mer people or maybe mer STEM workers? Why are they maids, Josh?
Former Mermaids trustee gives trans advice to private school head teachers. This is at the headmasters and headmistresses conference. They should just be head persons conference, as you say.
Absolutely.
And someone came in, an activist, Bobby Picard, gave a speech titled "The Gift of Trans," and. Mermaids is arguably a disgraced charity in that one of their other trustees, they'd written a paper about paedophiles or something dodgy, and then they'd had to get rid of them. Also, there were some safeguarding issues where they'd been giving some pretty dodgy advice to kids, certainly young girls, to like binding and also about going online to different discords where adults couldn't see what was going on. So there's a lot of stuff going on there. So the idea that this person, because they're in Mermaids, is suddenly a great human being is somewhat moot. But the other thing is that they're sort of saying, look, this is the conference, they're saying, look, we have lots of different people giving talks and stuff. Well, did anybody else come in and go, these are the dangers of what's actually going on and how this is arguably a social phenomenon? And there are a bunch of parents who've written in, parents who are of trans-identifying kids, who have written in, there's about 600 of them, and said, look, you've got to have the other people of you. You've got to get Helen Joyce in there. You've got to get all these other experts in. You can't just have this one trans woman going, oh, it's brilliant, everybody, it's all good, when actually there's a lot of other stuff going on.
Yeah. A few things bother me here. One, this Bobby Picard person, who's chief executive of Trans in the City, which sounds like a kind of rubbish sitcom. This person had a thing called The Science of Transgender on some page on Twitter, and there was no science in it. It was obviously complete junk. And look, the idea here, HMC, the Headmasters Conference, goes for this idea of in the importance of listening to people who disagree with a diverse range of experiences and opinions, blah, blah, blah. And that's all fine, except the fact that it was a closed conference.
Yeah.
So normally that would be useful and that would be free speech. We have no way of knowing. If it's a safeguarding issue, if people are promoting ideas that put kids at threat and it's closed, we have no way of knowing.
And it's the opposite of having a diverse range of opinions. It's ridiculous. And having this person go into schools and advise teachers is like having Fred West go in and advise on babysitting. It's nonsense.
Yeah, I think it'll be hard to top that. So let's move on and do the Telegraph. And Turkey's leader says he's against the LGBT. And apparently he's not too keen on the PC either, Leo.
Yeah, so...
What I've done there.
So Erdogan, who's the Turkish leader, is up for re-election on May the 14th. And, to sort of rally the troops behind him, he's come out, strong on family values. So the family values bit is good. He says family is sacred to us. A strong family means a strong nation. No matter what they do, God is enough for us. I mean, that sounds good, but he also said we're against the LGBT, and that's really regressive and horrible to Turkey's LGBT community. And they can also, obviously, gay people can have families. They're in families. It's an absolute nonsense that they can't be included in family values. But he's really struggling. It's he's sort of almost. I mean, he looked unassailable just a few months ago. But then there's the earthquake. He's got economic catastrophe. He's got this ridiculous economic policy. It's worse than anything Liz Truss could come up with, where they've got inflation, but instead of putting up rates to tackle the inflation, he's bringing rates down to try and stimulate the economy. So that's just causing hyperinflation. He's also had some health issues.
Well, just for balance here, since I've already defended Russia, I may as well offer the balance. And Is he actually saying he's against the people, or is he saying the sort of rainbow religion, the political coalition of LGBT? Because even here, it's expressed a bit differently, but there's the LGB group, which is separate from the TQ, etc. And he may mean something similar.
Well, I think if you're going to make that point, you've got to be very clear with your language. And if you're in a country that has a problem with homophobia, then you can't be stoking the fires like this. He says we are against the LGBT. That's a terrible thing to say.
Yeah, and this is the pushback that you're seeing where the T is sort of taking over the whole of the LGBT thing. So for him, he sees these sort of issues going on within the West and goes, look at them over there, and St. Putin did exactly the same. Look at what's going on over there. If you kick me out, this is the same sort of stuff that's going to happen. Yeah. But of course, it's no issues with LGB at all in terms of, you know, people just living their lives, as you say, in families and whatnot. And the fact that he's having to resort to this bigotry just shows, I guess, how scared he is.
So you think he's exploiting the radical trans movement to make political points, basically, to score political points?
Yeah, I mean, Putin does the same thing.
But also putting in the LGB within it, within the trans movement.
I mean, the West could make his job a bit harder by not being a complete, absolute clown show.
There is that. All right, well, let's do the Independent. And an Indian court says it doesn't want to leave same-sex couples with nothing in their hands. I doubt that's a problem they have too often, Josh.
That's all right. I'll just cross that joke out now. So, India offers new benefits to same-sex couples as marriage equality hearing near ends. So in 2009, same-sex relationships were legalised. Then the Supreme Court reversed it, and it only actually then double reversed it in 2018. So it's only actually really been legalised since 2018, which seems very close. But actually, within Hindu culture, or certain aspects of Hindu culture, there is homosexuality as part of it. Hindu deities are sort of gender fluid, and in the Kama Sutra, there's homosexual relationships. So it isn't like naturally necessarily like a bigoted society in that way. And now, but there's a few things happening here. So they've had this sort of great big, this advocate has been at the top court, has basically been bringing them on. And they're right now that they're not saying, look, we're going to have marriage, but they're saying, look, people who live together should be able to share their insurance or their insurance policies, bank accounts and whatnot, to make it more practical. So these are baby steps towards hopefully full, proper equality. And that's positive. But they're also saying, but yeah, we're going to refer you to something else. And look, if you get something, that'll be good, won't it? That's essentially the gist of it.
All right, Leo, any thoughts?
No, it's just good. I mean, it's good to see sort of like countries that were developing countries a while back. Now, India's, you know, quite a wealthy country, and it's the most populous country in the world now, and it's becoming a more liberal, more sort of westernised country. I just hope they reach the nice point that we reached in the 90s and just stop there.
Yeah, that would be good.
Well, they do. Sorry, they refer to queer couples, and but a lot of gay people I know really hate the word queer, and it's sort of been appropriated now to mean everything.
India may have not caught up with that bit.
Well, but the independent journalist who translated this certainly did.
OK, fair enough. Well, let's quickly do The Guardian with a story about new technology that will stop people being hacked. Leo, I've seen your WhatsApp, so this must be good news.
So Google is rolling out passkey technology in the beginning of the end for passwords. So AI is making more people redundant. So Apple and Microsoft are also bringing it through. So basically, just to explain it, users can create a passkey for each device they use, or the operating system or app used to manage the passkeys can be shared between the devices. A cryptographic private key is stored on the device, and there's a corresponding public key uploaded to Google. Got no idea what any of that means, but basically what it means is you stick your finger on the thing, and then you can get into your emails.
Yeah, the only thing that bothers me is when you're getting people to help you with your YouTube or whatever, or your podcast. Like I've got the Weekly Skeptic, number 16th for political podcasts in the country on Apple. I'm just saying it's part of the story. But
I just had 30,000 views.
Well, how does a podcast relate to the story?
I'll tell you, because you want people to log in and help you with like production work and things like this. And it's hard with two-factor because they're not there on your phone, and you have to like send them passwords and stuff. It's very annoying. Have they thought of that?
Well, I do everything myself on my popular YouTube channel.
OK, what do you think, Josh?
Yeah, I don't have any kind of exterior. This is all I've got. So I don't care. No, it is a pain. Every time you have to log into stuff, you have to go to a separate app that then does the password and stuff. And the other thing, of course, is it's you're tied to your phone even more. So if you lose your phone, you're somewhat restricted. Like you have that's another.
Although with this, they say you'll be able to switch between tech ecosystems more fluidly. So you'll be able to go from Chrome, from Android to Apple, and.
But if you lose your phone, you're kind of messed up. But then they say, oh no, don't worry about it. You just got to log into your account. I don't have my phone, mate.
Yeah. The one good thing, like I say, is it'll stop hacking. We saw that hack recently. Matt Walsh got hacked. You knew immediately because he started posting racist things. It'd be much harder to tell with Leo's Twitter. But anyway, that's it for part 3. But coming up in the final section, the wheelie bin you can drive, a drive-by grape attack, and Barbie gets in trouble. Who says we don't tackle serious stories? See you in 2.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Jacob Rees-Mogg. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
First and foremost, I'm a GB News fan, and I was before I was working here. Just love the fact that we're asking the questions that a lot of establishment media won't ask.
With a bit of a twist, we not only want to inform you, but we want to keep you entertained.
It's worth the drive because you get in and the team's all ready and waiting, they're itching to go, and it's a proper little family.
GB News is the People's Channel.
It's the audience that makes the programme sing.
We're giving our viewers and our listeners a voice. I see the thousands of your letters, tweets, emails, you name it, coming in.
Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it?
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent you.
It's time for something different. It's time for GB News. I'm very patriotic. I believe in Britain. Our best days lie ahead.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Join us here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics, and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News has its own late-night paper preview show, Headliners, where comedians take you through the next day's top news stories. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper, we've got it covered for you. Headliners, every night at 11 p.m, and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, on Sunday mornings from 9:30, taking the politicians to task and breaking out of SW1 to see how their decisions are affecting you across the UK. Bursting the Westminster bubble every Sunday morning, only on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain's watching.
Hello, I'm Calvin Robinson. Do not miss my Common Sense Crusade Saturdays at 7 p.m. Join me for some in-depth discussions on faith. Is that not the start of the slippery slope?
It's very much so.
And the big moral questions of the day. I'm baffled.
You've got some nerve.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Headliners. Let's get into it with the Mail and shocking news about Barbie. Did you just find out about Action Man's genitals, Josh?
Exclusive. No spare change. This is just a long time. No spare change in Barbie World. 100 million movie starring Margot Robbie and Ryan Gosling use homeless people in Santa Monica as background actors and pay them nothing. First of all, that's a bit of a spoiler alert because now we find out there's going to be loads of homeless people in it. So that's secondly, the fact this is exclusive. Really what it is some paparazzi who was around where they were shooting in LA, who was listening into the walkie-talkies, was like, I didn't hear anybody say anything about money, about paying these people money. So we don't even know if they really were in shot. We don't really know anything. We just know that some horrible paparazzi guy was like, in all my years of stalking people, I've never not heard something like this. He's also saying that the story's going to be super duper woke and about
nobody's
misogyny.
more trustworthy than a hard-working
paparazzi scum.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I totally trust him. I mean, I've got to say, the homeless people hadn't paid to be in the park. So, nobody's paying.
What's completely ridiculous about it is that the extras were paid to dress as homeless people, but the homeless people weren't paid.
Yeah.
I mean, what is that about? And also, Ken apparently just comes across completely ineffectual and lame. That bothers me. The director was saying, stop calling them homeless, they're houseless. Virtue signaling over actually paying them.
Flatless, apartmentless.
Right, apartmentless.
Yeah.
And here's the bit.
I'm houseless.
Here's the bit that bothered me. It says that apparently the movie revolves around Barbie leaving Barbie Land to cross over into the real world with Ken, where she's stunned to discover misogyny and other injustices. I can't wait to watch this, guys. It's going to be...
What Hollywood's been missing is a film with lots of social issues crowbarred into it.
Well, let's see. You know what, though? She's a really good director and writer, so I will be interested to see if she can...
Gerwig.
Yeah, and her husband, Noah.
Right.
She's good at, like, mumblecore and stuff, so she's moved over into big
Little
budget.
Women. But Noah Baumbach, her husband and writing partner, he's, like... done...
Yeah, he did The Squid and the Whale.
Yeah,
he did,
amazing
all his
stuff.
Any decent ones? Like, what's she done that's good?
Little Women, that was a good adaptation.
Little Women?
Yeah.
Is that the one with Julia Roberts?
No.
Everyone just switched off there.
Yeah.
Let's. We may possibly have exhausted that story, so let's do the metro now. With a wheelie bin, you can drive, which coincidentally is how people describe Leo's car. Sorry, Leo, you probably got a good car.
I've got a really nice car.
Yeah, it didn't work.
Got an Audi. And it's red, Nick.
Oh, well,
what car have you got?
I could have said Lewis, but he's not even here, so...
What car have you got?
A slightly better one than you.
What is
No,
it?
I don't drive, mate. I don't drive.
You don't drive?
Don't need to. I live
not a
in the
real
city.
man.
Why do I need to?
Not a real man. I bet if you did drive. I bet if you did drive. I bet if you did drive, it'd be an automatic.
I can drive. I can drive. No, and I drive gear stick. I'm such a gear stick proper driver. I can't even drive automatics. How about that?
Oh, really? Yeah. I like cars with it. Anyway, this guy has built a mobility scooter the length of an elephant, and he's built the fastest shed. Which probably isn't very hard because sheds don't move. And now he's created a motorised wheelie bin. He's called Kevin Nix. He's from Oxfordshire. He's a serial record holder. And this wheelie bin is actually taxed, so he could take it on the road.
I'm amazed they've managed to tax it. I mean, and what's great about this is we don't have pictures of it. But if you can imagine, it's a wheelie bin that you can drive. Yeah. And it's basically how they're going to want us all to live in the future, Josh. The WEF will have us all living in these things, probably.
Well, I was going to sort of criticise him, and then I remembered I have over 1,000 board games, so I thought I'd better keep my mouth shut.
Yeah. Okay. And can any of them go at 54 miles an hour like his wheelbarrow?
No, but I've got, like, little game that goes...
All right. That was a great story, but let's do the Telegraph now. With a story about a drive-by fruit thrower. Have we imported too much of American culture, Josh?
Is this even a worse story than the last one?
It's a non-story.
It's not even a non-story.
No, a guy threw a grape at someone.
Yeah, this is the drive-by fruit thrower targets latest victim with a single grape. This has taken up to 9 attacks now, and this just shows what the Tory government have done to our police force over the last...
Broken
decade, yeah, exactly.
It shows that food is so plentiful under the Tories' beneficent governance that people can waste it throwing it at passers-by.
Yeah. Well, all I can say is that Boys in the Hood would have been very different with this. Should we do this one about in the Mail? And a man who wants to name his son after Darth Vader. The only thing worse than finding out your father is Darth Vader is finding out he's stupid, Josh.
Yeah, so they've got... Well, they're going to call it... They want to call it... Well, actually, here's the other thing. In a resurfaced online post, so this is the slowest news day in the world, so they've actually had to go backwards. The kid is probably like 20 years old by now. Who knows when he did? And they wanted to call it Anakin, anybody... And it is May the 4th day, isn't it? Well, now it's...
The problem is Anakin makes you think of the rubbish prequels, doesn't it? The Phantom rubbish. Go on, Leo, quickly. With 30 seconds.
Anakin's quite a cool name, if it wasn't associated with the Phantom Menace.
Yeah. I mean, it'd be much better off being called Jar Jar Binks, probably. There's loads of names you could be called, like Bobber, Jabba, Nien Num, that's one for the fans, Yoda,
C-3PO.
We're just going to quickly name...
Princess Leia.
Han Solo.
We're just going to fill the remaining 8 seconds of the show naming Hollywood. All right, I think we've done enough
The Millennium Falcon.
Thanks, guys. Yeah. This is our last ever show. Now, the show's nearly over, so let's take a quick look at Friday's front pages. The Daily Mail has China's coronation insult to Britain. The Telegraph has coronation anthem is made for churches. The Guardian, UK and US in challenge to tech firms over growing power of AI. The Mirror goes with energy fat cat scandal obscene. The Eye has Shell force-fitted 4,000 prepay meters in the UK while making 32 billion in profits. Metro has send him victorious, and those are the front pages. Thanks to Leo and Josh. I'm back tomorrow with Josh, Leo's band. But make sure you tune in at 11 p.m. And if you're watching at 5 a.m., then stay tuned for breakfast. But for now, I'll say good night or good morning, and God bless.
It's all about family, being in people's living rooms, all the interaction and getting to know who our viewers and listeners are.
When I was young, my dad used to say, Nana, stop arguing. I wanted an outlet that would enable me to give my opinion.
People are going through a really hard time right now, and I know that you don't feel like you're being listened to by the establishment. I came to GB News because